So it's been a few weeks now since the primaries concluded on the 9th. A couple of weeks to be exact. I think they concluded on June 9th, and today is the 23rd. So it's pretty much exactly 2 weeks. And um, just as far as like how we're going, how we're moving toward change, if there's going to be change that is useful. Um, what things are really shaping up to be like. I mean, it was an interesting exercise, I think, which I participated in. I was an aspirant under the SDP party. And to see how the primaries, the different parties fared in the primaries is really interesting. There's some surprises. For example, I'm sure there is no one that did not expect the vice president, Osibanja, to at least be second place, to at least to have performed at a second place level in the party. But he didn't. He performed in third place. And with Tinubu winning, which was not that surprising, but it was surprising that he won by a tremendous margin. I would have thought it would have been closer, more of like Osibanjo and Tinubu tussle. And let's see who wins among those two, more like that sort of thing. But it wasn't even close. He was clearly, he, he had almost 1,000 delegate votes higher than the next person. So I guess that was that. The tussle was more in the second instance with PDP. There was it seems like between Wike and Atiku. That was more of a tussle because and so that was more of an upset because it seemed as if Wike almost thought he almost had it completely within it. But even that wasn't surprising either. None of it's surprising because I think that if you had asked people back in January, they probably thought, oh, it's going to end up being, these people with those parties and then maybe these other people with these in other parties and, all a little bit predictable. The real surprise, the real surprise is the Labour Party, right? They just kind of came out of nowhere. And that's the real drama where Peter Obi decamped and the Patutomi clique, whatever, said, oh, this is our solution, and so they showed up with him. Now that was the real new thing. Nothing else was new. That was new. So they showed up with that, and as a surprise at the end, he left PDP right before they held their primaries, and suddenly voila, everybody decamped for him, so he'd be Peter Obi, so he could be the candidate for the Labour Party. I mean, I'm happy because it's not really with as much as it seems like Peter Obi has to offer, it's more interesting to see him in his own contest. It's not as interesting to see him be VP to somebody if that's what ended up happening. Say, for example, he stayed on PDP and somebody ended up picking him up as VP. It wouldn't have been as useful because it's like it would have been in the background of people who didn't really have anything to say, but then he wouldn't be able to speak up either because he's supposed to be, the vice president's supposed to be willing to be secondary. So it would have created, and he's done that already. He's done that before. So it's interesting and more useful to see things turn out the way they did. And of course, oh my goodness, there's so much excitement around that candidacy, at least on the internet. So so I'm hoping that translates into reality, that translates on the ground among the people with PVC cards, among the ones who are really going to be voting on that day. As we know, the internet, because of the kind of place Nigeria is, where a lot of folks are not connected to the internet and all that, it can be really misleading that somebody's doing well on on the internet. That can be that can be not the most telling indicator of whether they'll really do well or not. So so they really need to do their work. They have their work cut out for them, really really mobilizing to get those votes, the actual votes, not the internet likes and the, you know, the comment victories, which they have the most of for sure. I think my favorite is obedient is better than sacrifice, which is a Bible quote. So if you have to like Peter or be obedient, because obedience is better than sacrifice. Straight out of the Bible, perfect. But yeah, that has to translate on the ground really, really, really well, so that he can do well. Because if he does well, that will be good. It will be encouraging for other alternative candidates, other ones that are not, you know who. So I think that, so it will be good to see how that pans out. But that means that all the people who are chiming and who are making a lot of noise have to really, really do that in live. They can't just, and they've said, oh, Labor Party has no structure, and you know the other APC PDP do, and they have, or that they don't have enough structure, or whatever the argument is. All I know is that they have to formulate some sort of strategy in really getting the votes that they need to get in order to really pull off a victory, or as close to as possible. They need to come up with a strategy of how to do really well. It can't be argument based. I think that it'll just be really interesting to. One of the things that that's interesting to me is actually Tinubu's victory in the primaries in his party, because there's not even you know, the other two are not even close to the other two, Vice President Osibanjo and Amechi did not even come close to getting as many votes as he did with the delegates. So I'm wondering if that says something about how Nigerians vote in general. So that's something to pay attention to, as in, what is it? Is it the fact that he paid the delegate? What is it? That's making that what's the appeal there? And how does someone like Peter Obi compete with that? Like, what is the appeal of that? Clearly his appeal is not that he's eloquent and this, because clearly he's not that. But it's still something, right? So he needs to figure out what that is. The Peter Obi camp needs to figure out what that is and how best to compete with him. And they need to circle around to it, like study it and then come back to it. So like end in Lagos, like, because no matter what they say, even if 50% or 80% of Lagosians say they don't like him, it doesn't matter. That's still his home camp. So go around and go, you know, camp, win over the North first, win over everywhere first, win over that region last, because then you have momentum and everybody's screaming Peter Obi and you're coming. Otherwise, if you just show up there, it just doesn't work, because that's his, you know, they just shut down 3 hours of, they shut traffic for I don't know how many hours I heard, because of a caravan, for I think Tinubu, right? So I'm just saying that it's hard to go into the place where he has been governor before first. Like, that has to be on the list of places to go for the last stop, because then you would have had time to study what's working, campaigning like everywhere else, and then you just like end there. And also you're descending there with, like, you know, with the momentum. So that's one of the things I was thinking about. So I mean, that the OB campaign definitely have their work cut out for them. I don't care how many screaming love. The screaming loves can almost be misleading, because it make you think a win is automatic. And the internet doesn't mean anything. People on the ground, people in the marketplace women, all those people, you don't know what they're gonna do, and they're the ones who are gonna go out there and vote. So trying to study the psychology of what will help with those guys is really important, and that needs to be really worked out so that um, so that the so that the campaign makes a meaningful impact and does well, so that the OB campaign does well. Yeah, so I'm interested in, obviously I'm interested in seeing that campaign do well. I feel as if we come to a point where we said in 2000, was it 2018, whatever, 2019, that everybody needs to rally around one person on in that space, and in order to really make a difference, right? Everybody can't be the alternative to rescue Nigeria. If there's like 10 people who are, then all they're gonna do is pull votes away from each other, and then the people you don't want to win are just gonna, it's just gonna be over. So it seems as if at this point there is kind of a call, I'd say like an obligation maybe, on the part of everybody that feels like they want to see the country do well and have the same ideas as the kind of person Peter Obi is, to just say, all right, fine, he should be the de facto candidate for them too. Even if he's not in their party, because that to me has the highest chance of success. That sort of is the de facto place, to place our confidence, our interest at this time, because, and just to see how well that does, see the impact that has, and you know, and I mean, he stands for good ideas, and he fulfills the the hopes that people want to see, the way they want to see a candidate present themselves, and the way that the thoughtfulness in his character, and yeah, those are all the things that are positive attributes about him, and he should do well if everybody gets their head together and the media gives him the support that makes sense to give to, gives him enough support too. And they do, I think. Not to have them be partisan, but to have them recognize candidates that are not, clearly, yeah. So anyway, wow, that's very exciting. And all the excited Peter Obi supporters, it's looking good. It's looking good. And yeah, we'll see what happens, and hopefully there's a good strategy in place for really mobilizing the votes. I mean, really study what it is that will make, because if you think about, because Osibanjo didn't do well next to Tinubu, which is weird, because okay, by the way, Osibanjo's speech was the best of the entire, of all the contestants. I thought he gave, I mean, of course, that's the very end, and that was just like maybe too little too late. But he tried with that. Which brings me to what I want to talk about is as hunger. So it's really, really important that I think it's better, it's useful anyway, if a candidate says that really wants the job more than if they don't. So if you study, well, if you pay attention to the ones that do well versus the ones that don't, I would tend to think like everyone who declared late, as far as I was concerned, was already not, in as good standing as the ones who revealed early on that this is what they want, and they've been getting more support. So that kind of, even in those two parties, even in the other two parties, it focused everybody on Atiku and Tinubu pretty early on. So then when Osibanjo and like Emefiele and all these other people started coming up, it was like, it's not surprising that it really ended up where it did with those two parties, with Osibanjo, with what's his name, with Tinubu and Atiku, because it kind of started out with them already, and all the people who declared later, to me, were kind of already at a disadvantage. because the people who wanted it seemed as if the people who wanted it more were the ones who were already on it or maybe those people were just more confident about it. Sometimes that's what it is. They're just more confident about saying they want it, where other people are holding off. But I don't really think there's a prize for holding out. I think they should just, yeah, it becomes easier for those who everybody already has them in mind already as the ones who are contending. Yeah, another thing that I don't know works is to that may be difficult is to go after candidates and go and get them forms and say, we really want this person to declare. We really want this person to declare. It might work, but it might also make people feel as if that person doesn't really want it, but you want them to want it. So you so you bought the forms for them and you're begging them to declare. To me, it may seem like that person's they're not hungry for it, and they may not enjoy the job because it's somebody else that's chasing them with the notion that they need to do it. So I don't know. In any case, I just think it's better if the will comes from that candidate to some degree, more than or maybe from God, more than if it's if it's like group chanting that they should do it, and then they eventually say, okay, fine, I'll do it. It's like, I would think that doesn't work as well, because then it may seem like they don't necessarily want to do it, or wouldn't. If it was too challenging, then they would just not be as interested in putting up with the craziness of it. If it became too much. It's all really interesting. It'll be fascinating to see how it goes, how it all goes along going forward. And even in, yeah, so even with, for example, the sort of alternative candidates that ran again, for example, with Moghalu and with Showaret, these are these are the other party candidates that ran before. They probably should all just give, obviously, I'm thinking of Peter Obi mainly now, but with their contest with ADC, I was really surprised that Moghalu didn't win. I thought he was going to be their de facto candidate, but at the same time, I'm not surprised. Well, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because if we have too many candidates that are in that category, in the sort of alternative from the other ones, then it's too many. So it's probably okay that it turned out that way, because then they can work out a different role, or play a different role, or do something else, or just work things out in another way, and just but yeah, even all the people that support Showaret should they should try to support Peter Obi, because he is someone that's supposed to do well. So that's sort of the main one in that space, and they should support him, and that's it. That's kind of the direction that they should take it, so he can do as well as possible. That's what we're hoping for. And he's an Igbo candidate. So, oh my God, I know that's what some people have been crying to wanted. So, well, then there you go. So for me, that just happens to be by the way. It's not, but for those who that's their focus on getting, then you got that too. So there we go. And now what's next is just the mobilizing and getting the job done, and getting it done. So, well, God bless, and I hope it works out. And I'll be here making sure that, keeping up with it.